Top, we have the 3D focus module.
We have LiDAR on. It's working so freaking good.
So today with me, I have the RS3 Pro, and I also have the RS2. And I want to tell you guys the differences between both of these gimbals. But more than that, I want to answer some questions that I think you guys may have. What's up guys, Social Vibes here to help you content creators grow in your skill sets. And today we're gonna dive right into the specs of the RS3 Pro. Now pretty much this gimbal shares all the same things as the last year's gimbal, which is the RS2, but there are a few new additions that make this gimbal worth the upgrade. So this gimbal has a new feature called auto axis lock. And basically what this allows you to do is automatically unlock all the axes whenever you power on the gimbal, and whenever you power it off, guess what? It automatically goes back into the locking position and locks it back for you. Now, while this new feature is very cool and can save you some time, I personally did not find myself wasting a lot of time on set unlocking these gimbals whenever I'm ready to balance it or turn it on. However, this is something nice to have if you're in the market for a new gimbal. Now, in comparison to last year's model, the RS2, you do get a new Gen 3 algorithm for the stabilization features. So this is supposed to give you some more stable footage compared to the Gen 2 algorithm, and we're gonna be testing that a little bit in today's video. Now, my favorite new feature is the fact that this new gimbal comes with Bluetooth, which replaces the camera cable needed to connect your camera to the gimbal. Now, I find this especially useful because whenever using my RS2 with my Sony FX3, I would always like to have the ability to power the camera all day off of a V-mount battery attached to the bottom using this tilted plate. However, I was not able to do that because that USB-C port on my camera was taken up by the cable that connects to the gimbal. So now, as soon as you power up the gimbal, it actually automatically connects through Bluetooth to your camera so that you can have all the functionalities that you would if you have a cable plugged into your camera to the gimbal. Now moving on, you actually get a new 1.8 OLED screen compared to last year's 1.4. Now moving on to our last headline feature. That's the fact that this gimbal actually has a manual mode switch built onto the gimbal now. Now previously on the RS2, you would actually have to click the screen to switch between the different modes. Now you have this right on the side of the gimbal for quick and easy access, but also to make sure that you haven't accidentally changed the screen if you didn't have it locked like before. Alright guys, so one thing that I actually forgot to mention is that this does have a bigger capacity to hold a bigger camera. So right now you can see that we have this monster rig right now, and they actually advertise on their website that this is made to hold this specific camera, which is the Komodo 6K. I think they're very, very proud that these gimbals can hold this camera setup, and it's actually doing it pretty well. So if I was in the market to buy the RS3 Pro, I would want to know a few different things. For me, the first thing that I would want to know is if the accessories from the RS2 work with the RS3 Pro. And I can say comfortably that all the accessories that I've tested so far that work with my gimbal, which is the RS2, work with this guy, the RS3 Pro. So hooked onto this gimbal right now, we have a few accessories that I actually took off my gimbal, which is the RS2. So up here on the top, we have the 3D focus module. Right here on the bottom, we have the Raven Eye. And then right here, we actually have the tilted plate, which allows you to plug on a V-mount battery. So far, everything works perfectly. Obviously, the plate works the same as well. You do get a bigger quick release plate. That is something to note, and it does have some mounting holes on the side, which is helpful if you're gonna be mounting extra things on your gimbal. Now, with that being said, let's actually go into the studio and do a test with the autofocus and this complete setup. And I'm gonna give you guys my feedback.
All right guys, so now we're in the studio and we have our boy Austin here, who actually allowed me to borrow his gimbal for the shoot. So shout out to him. Check out his links below in the description. All right, so now we're recording. We have LiDAR on with the Komodo, and guys, like, it's working so freaking good. I'm moving around, and as you can see, it's working really, really well. And I'm actually shooting wide open on this lens. So this lens actually stops down to a 3.1. And like I said, it's doing like so well. Now, as far as the feel of the gimbal, to be honest guys, it does definitely feel smoother than the RS2. It's definitely noticeable. It's definitely more stable, especially with this heavier payload. Guys, it's so stinking smooth. Seriously, there's definitely a difference between this and the RS2. I can say that now. But here's the thing that I'm wondering. Because it has a new firmware to it, so it's the 3.0 stabilization firmware. I'm wondering if they'll just put that in the RS2 as well, allowing it to be a little bit more stable. But the thing is that this gimbal actually can hold a bigger payload because this arm is much bigger, which makes it in return able to hold a bigger camera, but also gives it a little bit stronger motors to make it more smooth.
All right guys, so now we're back, and honestly overall I really do like this gimbal setup. I think that it has a higher capacity for you putting things on it, and I really did like the way that it moved smoother compared to my Ronin RS2. If you're someone who already has that Ronin RS2, don't know that I would necessarily recommend that you upgrade to this new gimbal, but if you are in the market for a gimbal, honestly, I think that there is no better gimbal right now for you to buy than the RS3 Pro. It just has a ton of new features that a lot of other gimbals don't have, and honestly, the professional feel that this gimbal has compared to other gimbals like the Weebles and etc. It's just so much higher. If you guys are interested in some entertaining content of me comparing this really expensive camera to my iPhone, then I recommend that you check out this video right over here.